Hello everyone, welcome to Dr. Rajkumar Academy. Welcome to the session on 13/9/2022 Hindu newspapers. So, in today's newspaper, let's quickly get into this important articles that are there. So, the first thing is about the Gyanvapi cases. Now, here in Varanasi, guys, there is a temple or masjid. So, that is the dispute actually. So whether it is a temple or a masjid. So when we are looking at it, on a wall, there are certain gods' idols being present. And Hindus were allowed to worship this before. After 1991, it is said that one day in a year you can do the puja and you cannot do throughout. But the Hindu woman had filed a case saying that earlier we used to worship throughout, but now there are certain provisions not to worship. Please allow us to worship. So for this the court has told Hindu women's suit that they must be allowed to worship is maintainable is what they are trying to tell. And second important thing is with respect to Ayodhya's case and others, there was places of worship act 1991. According to that, they were trying to say that anything associated to places of worship, please don't bring the way you have brought Babri Masjid and all, because that will lead to lot of unnecessary tensions in the society, right? So as of now, the court has given the judgment that the woman can worship, but there are still other legalities that we need to look into it. Fine. So guys, don't get into political issues. UPSC never asked about Babri Masjid case. They know that these are all important issues, but these are all sensitive issues as well, and different people will have different things in the society, so they will never ask you such questions. And then guys, retail inflation. For those people who have not studied economy, I want you to know there will be two types of inflation. One is called as wholesale inflation, another one is retail inflation. And whenever inflation is there, normally central bank, that is RBI, will look into the issue. And earlier it was RBI which used to decide about what exactly needs to be done. But now there is a committee called as Monetary Policy Committee, guys. We call MPC. And in this Monetary Policy Committee, there will be both from the government and RBI. And they will decide whether the interest rates must be increased or decreased in a country. At that point of time, normally they had told that whenever retail inflation whenever retail inflation is there in the country, it should be within 4 plus or minus 2 percentage. That is, minimum is 2, it should not go less than 2, and it maximum is 6%. But unfortunately now we have 7%, which is way ahead of what is actually studied here. So it is very very important for all of us to understand this, that today the inflation is 7%. So there is a possibility of MPC increasing the interest rate by 35 to 40 basis points, or we call base points. And when we say 35 to 40 base points, I'll tell you the actual Meaning of this 35 to 40 base points. Now, one base point means 0.01%. 35 to 40 basis points you can calculate accordingly. So, I already told you, whenever RBI increases interest rate, now bank has money, people are there, bank rather than giving it to people, bank will give to RBI. Fine. So that is the most important thing. So all the money will flow towards RBI. So money will be less in the hands of the people. So if money is less in the hands of the people, then inflation reduces. Nothing much, guys. Don't write, because every month they will be giving you one or the other things. Eastern borders stable, says Commander Kalita. Guys, eastern border basically means we are talking about Arunachal Pradesh. Remember, guys, India-China border is divided into three: western border, middle sector, eastern border. Western border basically means we are talking about LAC, that is Aksai Chin region. And when we talk about, middle sector, it will be Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh region. And if I say eastern sector, it is mostly what we call as Arunachal Pradesh. Fine. These three comes into picture. Now in Arunachal Pradesh, India has constructed railway lines, air connectivity, everything is what it is trying to tell. Nothing specific, guys. General information they are talking, nothing much. Let's go to editorial page. Bharat Jodo and Congress Jodo as opportunities, not required, guys. Three to tangle. Now this is between India, Pakistan and US, guys. Now let me explain this concept a bit. See, guys, when we talk about Pakistan, Pakistan purchases most of its weapons from US. Now 1945 to 1990 is called Cold War era. One side US was there, another side USSR was there. Pakistan used to support US, India used to support USSR. USSR used to give weapons to India, US used to give weapons to Pakistan. After 1991, India-Russia relations continued, but India's relations with US also started improving. And for US, Pakistan is a major non-NATO ally, and Pakistan is important to fight against Afghanistan and terrorism. So when US was fighting war in Afghanistan, Pakistan was very important for them. Now when US is not in Afghanistan, Pakistan is much more important for them. The reason for this is Pakistan will normally help US to go and attack Al Qaeda. Now, to fight against them, Pakistan has to give, or US has to give, F-16 weapons to Pakistan. And guys, F-16 is advanced equipment, and in this you can have air to air missiles as well. And US gave this to Pakistan to fight against terrorists. But what Pakistan is doing, Pakistan is trying to use this against India. Pakistan says we will use it against terrorists, whereas India is scared that Pakistan will use it against India. So, India started arguing that please don't give it to Pakistan. But US used to say, I'm giving to Pakistan to fight against terrorists. Don't be scared. Now, recently, when India attacked Pakistan and did Balakot, where we went into Pakistan, bombarded, Pakistan used F-16 against India. So India told US that if you give any equipment to Pakistan, it will be ultimately used against me. So please stop giving it. And that was the example. So the entire article there is actually talking about that. Nothing much. Fine. So don't worry about it. After that, it is about cricket, and this is not required, guys. Prabhash Ranjan's article. G20 and top secrets is also not important. All professors. BJP TRS not required. BJP leaders Hindu groups not required. Burden on justifying hijab not required. You cannot unite RSS not required. CPIM not required. Supreme Court Collegium not required. Delhi High Court, militant, 2-op, farmer outfits protests not required. Then guys, what is important is India raises Sri Lankan Tamil issue in United Nations. This is very, very important guys. So let me explain you what has happened in this particular case. So now, if we consider Sri Lanka, northern side and eastern side of Sri Lanka, there are Tamil population. And in this region, LTTE was also there. Now, Mahinda Rajapakse started killing the LTTE, and when he killed LTTE, he also killed many Tamil people in the region. And it led to what we call as human rights violations. Land was destroyed, buildings, roads, everything was destroyed. Where? In northern and eastern part of Sri Lanka. As everything was destroyed in northern and eastern part of Sri Lanka, India started giving fund to Sri Lanka to help Tamil people present in the region. And today in United Nations, India has raised its concern that Sri Lanka is not providing any measurable results. Yes, measurable results means how many buildings you constructed, what development you made, like that. Measurable investments and developments in Tamil dominated regions. China and all always support Sri Lankan Sinhalese, whereas India support Tamils and also Sinhalese. But we always tell, try to take care of the Tamil population also. So guys, in your international relations, in Sri Lankan page, you try to write international relations Sri Lankan page, you try to write within Sri Lanka, northern and eastern parts within Sri Lanka, northern and eastern parts are dominated by Tamils. Tamils. Full stop. They were they were killed and harassed. They were killed and harassed during LTTE attacks. During LTTE attacks. Full stop. Indian government has raised this issue has raised this issue in in United Nations. United Nations that Sri Lanka is not that Sri Lanka is not taking any measurable progress taking any measurable progress for Tamil population for Tamil population. Fine guys. So this is very very important. Now Naga delegation meets Shah, pushes for revival of talks. As I told you, Nagaland always demands for certain separatist things, and they have met Amit Shah to discuss about it. Now there are three issues, guys. One, years ago, Naga constitution must be made into Indian constitution. Naga dominated areas in Assam, Arunachal Pradesh and Manipur should become part of Nagaland, and we should create regional autonomous territory. That means if Nagas are present anywhere in Manipur and Arunachal Pradesh, they must be made a separate autonomous territory, which is not accepted by Indian government, and that had led to the problem. So recently I spoke about this. If you are writing for the first time, you write, else again you write down, guys. People, if you have already written, also write down the three issues between Nagaland Nagaland and and central government are first one, inclusion of Yehzabo, Yehzabo, years ago. That is Naga's constitution, Naga's constitution into Indian constitution. Second, integrating Nagas present in Nagas present in Manipur and Arunachal Pradesh. Manipur and Arunachal Pradesh. That is to unite 1.2 million 1.2 million Nagas. Next, to establish regional autonomous territory regional autonomous territory for Manipur and and Arunachal Pradesh. Manipur and Arunachal Pradesh Nagas. So guys, this is important. Ayodhya temple not required. This is very very important, guys. 8 African cheetahs to land in Jaipur on Friday. Guys, this is in Kuno National Park, Madhya Pradesh. I want you to write down environment and ecology. Kuno National Park, KUNO. Kuno National Park, Madhya Pradesh. 8 African cheetahs, 8 African cheetahs from Namibia. 8 African cheetahs from Namibia. Okay, I'll explain this. This is for prelims. I'll explain. Now, what is happening? See, guys, you know food chain, correct? So, for cheetahs to survive, you need some animals. So, in Kuno National Park, you have chital, sambar, nilgai, wild pig, chausinga, lagur, peafowl, hare, and feral cattle, which cheetahs can eat. So that's why we study food chain and all. And not only 8, up to 20, they can bring cheetahs into the region. And wherever they introduce, they will ensure that some 6 square kilometers, no other predator will be there. That means another leopard, tiger, or something should not be there. The reason for this is when an animal is introduced into new area, it doesn't know where to run, how to run, what all are there, where you get water, where other animals are running, you never know. So for these cheetahs to get used to, first it should be free. Whenever it is roaming around and set its own borders, it must be free from other predators. So we are also planning to remove already existing animals in the region so that these can first adjust and then others will be brought together. So leopards and all we are planning to remove which were there is, but not important to write. So nothing is important here, guys. But in science and technology, I want you to write center is trying to curb lumpy skin disease. Prime Minister. Fine, this is very, very important. Guys, lumpy skin disease is a disease which affects cattle, guys. And whenever it affects, there is a possibility that it will have, reduction in the milk and all. That's where we are all worried what may happen to it. Fine, but government is saying that today India is the second largest, or largest producer of milk in the world. Why we are telling such things is to tell people that don't be scared, we will take care of these diseases. I think in Gujarat elections are also going to come, and it is very important in Gujarat, to have good cattle health and all. That's the reason they are talking about it, guys. And then the next important issue, Ukraine claims more territorial gains. So this is very, very important. Now winter is coming, Ukraine is defeating Russia easily. Xi to visit, prolonged Rohingyas, these are all other issues not so important, don't worry. India may need up to 28 gigawatts in new coal-fired power plants. So guys, may need is not important, don't worry about it. Steps to cool food inflation will deliver in coming weeks. Yes, food inflation, food and fuel is very, very important part, right? And it is not directly under the control of government, because it depends upon the supply. Now, food supply depends upon agriculture, fuel supply depends upon the external things. So, if you remove food and fuel, the remaining things will be part of core inflation. And except food and fuel, other inflation is under control, is what government is trying to tell here. So guys, inflation and all numbers don't try to remember, only try to remember the concepts. That's enough. Fine. So apart from this, uh, if you look at text and context, guys, so this is giving about the death counts of accidents and all, right? And female knight and the begums of Bhopal. It's about the book, so don't worry. Fine. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. Guys, classes have started, orientations are going on. Those who are interested to join even now can reach out. Thank you, guys.